So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cosmic Conversations. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, and tonight our special guest speaker will be Neil Gaur with Portal to Ascension. And for those of you who know Neil, know that you just love him to pieces. He's one of the leaders in the consciousness field. He has Portal to Ascension with hundreds of hours of beautiful programming. He's also a poet. He's a songwriter. He's a film producer, and we're going to hear from him in just a minute. But as always, I want to thank everyone, all of our sponsors, of course, Portal to Ascension, being a partner with us, New Realities, Awaken Ascending. So I want to say hello to all of our other family, all of our Zoom family, and I want to share with you real quickly some of the things that are coming up. As you know, the Wish Alliance has now changed our name to the Galactic Alliance, and everything will officially begin to shift over with a new web address and everything at the end of the month, but you can still access us, and we'll continue to be able to access us through the wishalliance.org. As you scroll down, I really want to highlight we have coming up on the 27th and 28th, the Starseed and ET Hybrid Conference. And if you have not gotten your tickets, you need to do so now. All you have to do is click that register button, and it will take you immediately over to the Portal to Ascension website, where you're going to be able to sign up. The cost is only $55 for both days, so we really hope to have you there. I want to flip back real quick again and remind you to mark your calendars for the Galactic Ambassadors Congress that will be coming up March the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. This will be where we'll interview all of our ambassadors and bring information that they have to share. We also have the Galactic Origin Symposium coming up next year in Colorado Springs. So plan to get your tickets as soon as they go on sale. Get your flight arrangements, your hotel, as soon as we have that information up. October 13th, 14th, and 15th. We're super excited about that. And what I'm super excited about tonight also, again, we have Neil Gaur with us. And Neil is going to share one of his awesome presentations. So Neil, I'm going to have you to go ahead and come on up. I need to make you host again, but let me get you up here first. Must have kicked you out. So there you go. Bringing you on up.
Oh. Awesome. Hey guys, nice to be here with you all. How much time do I have, Sheila? Because I'm going to kind of freestyle this, so I'm going to see what I'm going to flow into.
Okay, well, we typically go for around an hour to hour and a half and have lots of questions and answers. So you Perfect. Take as much time as you need.
So what I was going to, well, up until 30 minutes ago, I had no idea what I was going to do. And then I said, oh, let me do my mind presentation, but the download speed over here is so slow, I can't download my mind presentation. So what I've decided to do instead is kind of do like a plethora of things. I'm going to show you 2 spoken word videos that I just released yesterday, and they're like a minute each. And I'm pretty excited about it because I just actually came back from 4 weeks in Guatemala in jungle at a place called Mystical Yoga Farm. And this place is an intentional community that also does retreats. So I went there for a whole month doing something called the Light Leadership Residency, which was basically everything from ceremonies to kirtan to workshops on quantum physics, conscious business management, marketing in the conscious world, and yoga every day. Great organic food. It was just like, it was super life-changing. Every single week there was actually a different theme. So we started with the snake because the first week was shedding. The second week was the jaguar because of the shadow work, and it was really deep, like hardcore. Being in the jungle for 4 weeks in a community with seeing the same 25 people every single day is a huge test of like boundaries, transcending FOMO. Because I was like, you know, that was the thing. We even had like in integration circles, we'd even have conversations about the fact that sometimes we need our own space and our own privacy. But when you feel like you're in this group, you feel obligated to be a part of certain things, and you get FOMO for not being a part of it. So this whole thing was super transformative. And then in the third or fourth week, when I worked through so much stuff, I decided to ask the guy that was videoing the whole thing if he would be down for me to pay him to do some recordings of me doing some spoken word. And I didn't realize how good it would come out. And he literally just gave it to me yesterday. So we're going to start with that. And then what we're going to do for the topic today is, since I couldn't download that presentation, we're going to do a deep dive analysis, as deep as possible, of some declassified government documents that are basically whistleblower testimony, and then also just documents in general that are the smoking guns, really, of the fact that we have been visited. And just kind of like, I've always wanted to do like a presentation specifically on these. So we're going to talk about some documents and some anomalies. I know I did my galactic origins presentation here once before, but we didn't get into this part of it. So this is kind of the tail end of it, where we specifically talk about the documents. And I'll mix it all up with some poetry and some other cool things and art as we go along. So firstly here, I'm going to go ahead and share my two spoken word pieces here. So let's do this. Share, optimize for video. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So this one is called The Ascension Journey.
The road goes on for generations. The travelers would disperse their light amongst all the willingly incarnated souls. But what if the ones that didn't know? Amnesia then turned on endowment to reserve a place in the fifth dimension for themselves. The ego took control and made a life they shall never know. I welcome you, dark one, for lack of love we follow my pain and woe. We all sold our souls to the devil, but the devil exists not. Negative energy we double as evil creates the demons of whom we are fearful. Take the D from the demon, put it in front of the word evil. Now you have a personified devil. Our thoughts and experiences create this creature only exists in the mind. Our desires and wants create this full feature ego that gets the lower self reaching the divine. Intellect. Love. On a perfect understanding we will have with one another. I welcome you, my brother, my sister, my lover, to become one, to help me become one, before reality turns me from duality and back to ether's imagination. You see, I'm the ghost of lives past. Generations have descended just to gain these experiences, and I pray the human situation is critical, mind analytical, won't let me forget the fall of angels and demons into this third dimensional world. Is this planet yours? May I hide amongst the lost souls? Hide out for a bit, drink some liquor, smoke some weed, and step outside for a cigarette? Yeah, sure, man. Here's the social security card, you may live. Reincarnated to a kid to live and get back to the society and unlock their borders. That's motive, but the action comes a horde of abstract thought. Who is not a ghost, a spirit, but just is. An enlightened individual. Equality minus the elitist political goal, a single flow of pain and woes and shamanistic pagan rituals. We will resurrect the Messiah in all of us. It's time to trust our brothers and sisters. Unity of mind, conscious awareness on the rise, the yin-yang intertwined, masculine feminine lovers intertwined, spit worse, the chakra points in my spine, relentless but still find inner peace hopes down the pace of my corrupted mind, chemtrails, aspartame, fluoride, getting drunk and high to block the consequence of why am I really here? But now I know is to help humanity steer into the right direction. For every single one of you I feel affection. We're in the same situation, so erase the awkward moments, trying to walk around and get that bonus. Remember, the Arcturians will be one of the group of interdimensional beings in the near future. The mass signs will help us those really breathe. So raise your frequency if this is what you want to see. And don't try to break free from the shackles of captivity that we formed in our own mentality, because you and I, we are, and we've always been free.
All right, so that was one of them there. This is a debut. I'm showing you guys the first time. I haven't launched them on my YouTube yet, but I'm pretty excited because I've always wanted to create videos of these spoken word pieces, and I think it came out pretty well. Okay, here's the other one: meditate and levitate.
Meditate and levitate. Waves of frequencies resonate higher. I'm connected to the provider. source of cosmic energy. We're going to meditate and levitate. Waves of frequencies resonate higher. I'm connected to the provider. Source of cosmic energy. We're going to be one single entity. Expansion remedied. Oneness must breathe. Exhale and let free. Consciousness to be. Experiences of you and me. Souls of interdimensional beings to feel, hear, and see this third dimensional planetary existence. All time can be found in one instance. In this realm of linearity, atoms in anarchy, quantum polarity, the epitome of creation. Facing our egos, acquiring patience, waiting to let go of our nations and join the federation of souls that will take us to the fifth world.
All right, thank you for watching that with me, guys. All right, let's get into this today. But before we do, we're just going to center ourselves and take some breaths here. And since we're going kind of government documentation today, these documents don't really have any fear involved in them. Like there's some UFO documents, government documents that basically are trying to incite fear. But just in the fact that we're not really diving specifically into the whole spiritual component, which is something that I usually do and that we do on this on Galactic Alliance as well. We're going to just take a few deep breaths and just open ourselves to receive the informations, the validations and the confirmations, and the mind-blowing awareness that has already been discovered out there. When we look at some of the documents that we're about to see, it's really like whether this is true or not, the fact that these main or agencies are even investigating these, we have to start questioning, like, what is the nature of reality? What is really known about who we are and where we come from? So let's take a moment here. And everybody, just get comfortable. Feel free to close your eyes if you would like to. And we're just going to breathe normally in this moment. Just breathe normally. Feeling the breath going into your body. Feeling your lungs fill up from the oxygen. Fine-tuning your senses to feel the sensation of the air leaving. Can you feel your heart pulsating in your body? Do you feel your veins? Fine-tune your senses to really focus on what is occurring in your body for you to be able to live, for you to be able to be alive. Continue observing the breath. Can you feel the breath right underneath your nostrils, top of your mouth? And in this moment, we're just going to take a few seconds here just to accept our reality as it is. And now extend your awareness to outside of your body. The sensations of everything around you. The sounds. Even your clothes touching your skin. Even the air brushing against your skin. What is going on around you? How does the air around you feel? How does your aura feel? Send your awareness to around your body. Now we're just going to take a few deep breaths in a second. Right now, just continue to just monitor and feel the air going in and out, expanding your awareness to outside of your body. And we're going to do 3 deep breaths, each exhale with a sigh, a verbal sigh, a vocal loud sigh. So on the next exhale, take your first inhale to breathe in fully and sigh it out. Another deep inhale. Let it go. One more time. And let it go. And if your eyes were closed, you can go ahead and open them up whenever you're ready. Let's do this. So I'm going to start out over here in this slide. Since we're talking about technology, documents, and everything, let's start here actually. Maybe we should go back further. Okay, so we're going to start from advanced technology, right? You guys are already, or have been, a lot of the crowd that's tuning in here really has already gone deep on many levels. So we're going to start with this. There is advanced technology that is external technology and advanced technology that is human tech. When I first woke up and I realized the cycles of time, look at you guys directly. When I first woke up and I realized that there's cycles of time, right? 26,000 year cycles. Let's get some engagement actually in the room. Who here is not aware of the cycles of time and the evolution, the devolution of consciousness? And if you aren't, just put the number 1 in the room, in the chat, and then I'll do a little segue and talk about that before I get into explaining the technology with it all. But if you're not familiar with the cycles of time that we evolve and devolve in consciousness, go ahead and put the number 1 in the room. Okay. So, okay, that's cool. I'll go ahead and talk about it anyway. So it seems from ancient scriptures, from ancient Indian texts, Vedic awareness, the Upanishads speak about it, the ancient Chinese texts speak about it, Kabbalistic texts speak about it, is that human consciousness or human experience on Earth goes through cycles and is not so linear. We have this assumption that, well, conventionally, that we were a really primitive race and that we evolved from a primitive state up until the moment we have now. We have creationism, right, which is, a lot of Christians and other fundamental sects from that have this belief that, humanity is around 5,000 to 6,000 years old. And the reason for that was there was actually a great flood that happened around 6,000 years ago. But around 13,000 years ago was the massive flood at the end of the Younger Dryas period, which was a period in which there was some sort of cataclysm on the earth, and we're at the end of the last major ice age that created a flash melting of a lot of ice that basically created this huge flood on the planet. The evidence is now suggesting that we were at a much more advanced level of consciousness, even maybe technology, at a point before that. So when I talk about the cycles of time and the devolution and evolution of consciousness, that really goes into the idea that we were more spiritually advanced, right? That's basically the easiest way to explain it. And then we lost our awareness and then we regained it. So the theory now is the understanding really that I have and many other people is that this has happened many times, not just once or twice. So if we talk, for example, Atlantis existed, in his last days was around 13,000 years ago. At the same time, at the end of the Younger Dryas period, at the same time as a flash flood had occurred on the entire planet and there was a worldwide cataclysm. If we're only now rediscovering or even discovering remnants of Atlantis, but it's still basically known as myth for most cultures in the world, imagine what would have happened 26,000 years before that, 13,000 years before that, because we're going through these cycles constantly that shifts. Basically, it's 26,000 years altogether, but 13,000 years are the major shifts from one epoch, which is 4 ages, to the other epoch, which is a reflection of those 4 ages. So if we had existed on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years, there's a chance that our consciousness had got to a level really highly connected with full remembrance multiple times, but then we devolved again. So there was a point in humanity's history where our consciousness was really high. I used to think when I first woke up that the level of consciousness that we would have at such a high level would also equal a high level of technology. So when I was looking into ancient antiquity, archaeological discoveries, I was trying to find ancient civilizations that had a really high level of technology. And I was wondering why we weren't able to discover like things like computer chips or any other advancements, even spaceships. Recently, my idea of this has completely shifted. Now I feel that consciousness, a higher level of consciousness, does not always equal a higher level of technology. Because a lot of times when beings are at a certain level of consciousness, the external technology that we create in order to interact with the world is no longer valid. We no longer need it. We're tapped into a greater knowledge. We understand our divine connection, the insecurities that we have, and the tools and devices that we utilize to keep these insecurities perpetuating are no longer needed. So there were great civilizations in the past that probably did have a higher level of technology and even were most likely exploring space, but it doesn't really mean that an spiritually advanced civilization had to have advanced levels of technology at the same time. And a good example would be some of these ancient cave drawings that we see around the world that show depictions of ETs and a very advanced spiritual knowledge, but they're not creating computers or any other type of documentation that we would consider advanced in order to show us this material. They're actually creating cave drawings. And then conventionally speaking, we have now accepted that, in the mainstream as very primitive. And Stone is saying, we raise our level to communicate with higher, more information via experiences we resonate to head toward. So now with that being said, let's get into this. So we have advanced technology or advanced human technology. So now we know that, I think all of us here can probably agree that star beings are out there and we're not alone in this universe. So we also know we cannot perceive them directly. And the reason why we aren't able to perceive them just like directly, like they could be around you right now. Some people have that sight, right? But from what I'm understanding now is that we are a huge light show in the universe, and there's craft all around us. There's activity happening all the time, around us, above us, everywhere. And the reason why we can't perceive them directly is because it's truly a frequency game, right? It's vibration and frequency. If you are not at the vibration to perceive something, you're not going to be able to see it. And that is what is occurring on the planet now in regards to evolution and devolution of consciousness. We've been at this lower state of consciousness for so long that the only way to get back to this complete understanding and awareness is to transcend or work through traumas, work through our challenges, not only individual karmic traumas and experiences, but also a collective karma that we also have. From collective soul agreements and contracts that we're also shifting out of. Those contracts are coming to a close. And as we do that, we're able to advance and evolve our consciousness. When we evolve our consciousness, we start tapping into the advanced human technology. Because our bodies, our avatar bodies, are extremely advanced, as you probably all know. The abilities that we have within our body is pretty amazing. So we have basically not just forgot it, but we're also been disconnected from, and we've also been educated to believe that we're not as powerful as we are. We have many different things when in regards to our brain capacity and our ability to function on higher levels through our mental capacity, through our DNA being unlocked, through our chakra systems, which are all portals to another dimension of awareness, right? And depending on who you ask, but I really subscribe to this understanding here that each of the chakras are actually a dimension of information that we can tap into. So we have the 7 chakras in our body. Then we have the 8th chakra, which is above our head, which actually gives us access to an 8th dimensional experience while still existing in this 3D body. So the question here is, what is the next step once we start evolving? And what can happen once we start understanding frequency and vibration and all this information coming out about sound frequency, sound healings, quantum physics, subatomic world? What's going to occur as this technology starts getting released to the public? And we're going to get into some documents that kind of talk about, what we already know is possible. So we can create technology to perceive these realities. not only are we getting to a vibratory state where we can perceive them, but we're also creating technology to perceive realities. Great examples when we're at Sheila's place the other day, and the camera was able to see beings that we weren't able to see. And the reason for that is that the camera was correlated in a way to pick up frequencies that the human eye is not able to see yet. And we also have that with, infrared detectors and so many other frequencies that we're aware of, let alone the ones that we're not aware of. And because we are able to do this, we can perceive other realities. So now, as we're understanding that there's so much going on out there, this technology is advancing to a state that is able to perceive these realities. And another great example are aura imaging machines, right? The aura imaging machine, not everybody can see the aura like that, but the way this machine picks up light and frequency is able to pick up on the subtleties of our actual auric field. So we can create machines that can assist, but we're now learning the potential in our own bodies to be able to tap into these realities. Ancient scriptures speak about celestial beings and even craft that they experienced when in a state of consciousness, utilizing meditation, yoga, plant medicines, and more. So we see in ancient scriptures, and from me traveling around the world, speaking to different indigenous communities and people having experiences with UFOs and ETs, a lot of people on different psychedelics or plant medicine in general have had apparitions, not only within their own consciousness, but also in physical, like their eyesight has shifted to be able to perceive these realities. And this has been happening for thousands of years. So we even have evidence of Pythagoras, for example, from people that were his followers wrote about it, doing different psychedelic plant medicines and able to have conversations with deities that would provide him insight on the mathematics of the universe. So we actually see this throughout history. And it's interesting because a lot of very famous people that you could say were responsible for creating society as we know it have had these experiences or these connections. And Grant Cameron also did a presentation on our website called, UFOs and the Music Connection. And he talks about how a lot of the most famous musicians and famous songs in the world were actually, if you look into what they were speaking about or their interviews, seem to be divinely inspired by some sort of celestial download or even a sighting. It was interesting. He had this whole segment on different artists that had like UFO sightings or experiences with star beings and actually wrote specific songs after it. So we're getting these downloads always. So, but some humans were always just connected to the earth to perceive, right? Even now, a lot of you guys here are seeing things all the time. Sheila, has all types of experiences. So some humans were connected to the earth and the stars enough to be able to perceive into that vibration. When you're at every yuga cycle, there are always those awake and able to perceive. The lower in the yuga cycle you go, right? We got the Kali Yuga, which is the Dark Ages. We got the Dwapara Yuga, which is the Bronze Age. We got the Treta Yuga, which is the Silver Age. We got the Satya Yuga, which is the Golden Age. In every age, there's always those who can perceive. The higher in age, right? Using higher because that's the term that we understand these concepts in. There are more and more people that are able to perceive. But also in every age, there are those that choose not to stay asleep, which is also okay because it's a part of the experience that we signed up for, to experience ourselves infinitely. We didn't come down here to Earth just to experience ourselves as light. We didn't travel the universe and incarnate into all these different dimensions to just experience light and love and harmony. We have experienced that for so long, for eons and eons and millennia. We also chose, and Earth specifically was a choice for us to come and experience something other than just universal consciousness and light. But then the journey and the game is us to go through this darkness, us to go through these challenges in order to remember the light. So some humans are always just connected enough to be able to perceive. And here is just to plug this real quick. This is a free presentation on PortalToAscension. And if you want to go deeper into some of these topics here that I'm going to go into, because I'm not going to go as deep as people that go line by line with you. This is a good one. And then Grant Cameron, all of his presentations on our website, he goes through a lot of documentation here on our website. But this one was really cool because it was Michael Schratt, who was an aerospace historian. And his aerospace historian career took him to realizing and understanding the black world of black budget programs in the US government, and started finding that a lot of these crafts, a lot of these UFOs, and a lot of the UFOs that we actually see out there are actually reverse engineered craft. So there's two things within that: reverse engineered craft. Some people are like, that's not ET, that's reverse engineered craft. Well, do you understand what you're saying when you say that? You're literally saying that it was ET and it's been reverse engineered. That's as important as saying it's ET. If it's like a craft that was created and was never reverse engineered, that's a whole different story. But a lot of these craft are reverse engineered from UFO crash retrieval sites that the government literally had, the US government literally had a department of UFO crash retrieval ever since the 40s, late 40s, early 50s, around the time of Project Blue Book in 53. And one of my good friends who's passed away now, he was actually on the UFO crash retrieval team. His name was Clifford Stone, and he actually stayed in Roswell since Roswell happened. He still lived there up until he passed away a few years ago. Clifford Stone was actually on the UFO crash retrieval team. And if you read any of his books or his material, you'll find some amazing information there. There was even a 17-page document that the US government would give around. And I saw this document at his house, and the document was the anatomy and the schematics of specific UFO and ET bodies. Because not only are higher dimensional, all types of beings visiting us, but there's all types of beings visiting us. And there were like frog type beings that Clifford Stone met in Vietnam when he was sent there, and he was blindfolded because they weren't going to tell him where he was sent, but he was sent to Vietnam to retrieve a UFO. And when he was sent there, all of a sudden there's these frog-like beings there speaking to him and knowing who he was. So as he was, during the UFO crash retrievals, he started, when all of a sudden 6-7 years ago, all these documents, some of which I'm going to go over right now, started coming out. Clifford Stone was like so happy because he spent decades telling people about this, and a lot of people just considered him a complete kook, and he was shunned by his own colleagues in the military. He was a decorated officer at one point, and then all of a sudden certain documents started coming out, and a lot of these documents actually had validation of what he was doing. And the thing is, with a lot of these UFO documents, actually, there's something that they do online. Well, so when they dump a lot of UFO files, right, they put them up. There's hundreds of thousands of files at the same time, right? This happened like 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago. So many documents have been released, tens to hundreds of thousands of documents. It's almost impossible to go through there and find it. Some websites like the FBI, the NSA, CIA have created subsections on their website, cia.gov/UFO files or whatever, that basically is a directory of a lot of those documents. But many of the ones that are like, oh my God, what just happened, are completely basically gone, right? Like are not able to be seen unless you know the research and do the research yourself, or were a part of the project and know the code words. So that's what happened with Clifford Stone. He knew the code words to all the projects that he was on. So what he started doing is he started looking up the code words on the documents that were released, and he started downloading them and creating CDs, and then sending them all over the world to people he knew and stuff of the documents. And so that was huge for him, because he was actually able to find the projects that he was a part of by actually searching the code words on the actual website for the CIA. All right, so going now into some just things to think about, really. When this document came out here, this was February 13th, 2021. That was only the beginning of last year when this, when the Sun reported on this. And as a lot of you guys know, there's been a lot of UFO disclosure happening and releases. Congress held like 2 hearings on it that literally went nowhere. They keep going around in circles. They keep saying things like, well, are you sure it's not China? Are you sure it's not Russia? Like, that's pretty much what they just keep thinking that it is a foreign adversary, even though many high-level officials have come out and say that it's not. The reason why is partly conspiracy to cover it up, but also a lot of these individuals, that are the Congress members and senators, were never in the know about any of this stuff. They don't even know what questions to ask. They don't bring in the professionals. They don't bring in the people that have been doing this for a long time. If they do, it's like Jeremy Corbell, who's just this figurehead for these people, or somebody like that. It's not like the actual people like us or you guys or other people that have been doing this work for decades and can actually compile a lot and bring it together. So they're asking silly questions because they don't really know where to go with this information. And then, okay, so this one here says, stunning admission. Pentagon admits it's been testing wreckage from UFO crashes and findings may change our lives forever, right? And it's so interesting how like this comes out and then nothing. And this was so this piece of technology was specifically at an Air Force base owned by Robert Bigelow, Bigelow's company, the defense contractor in Vegas. So when this first initially started coming out 7 to 8 years ago, they had said that they had all types of UFO crash, basically UFO fragments in their base in Vegas, and they were actually researching it. And then there was a group of scientists that were going to go to the space and actually see what's going on with it, do some tests and experiments and figure out what's happening. But then that went as well. So what occurs normally is they have a big release of the information. This is what's happening and this is what's going to happen next. But then what happens next doesn't happen, and nobody ever follows up with them, right? No one's holding them accountable. And this is plausible deniability. As we're getting closer and closer to disclosure of the truth of the extraterrestrial presence, we're getting to a point where they basically can say that they already told us. You know, when we start understanding the gravity of what's going on in the universe and the life out there, and people are like, wait a second, there's life on Mars, there's water on Mars, we have understanding of microbial life that used to be on Mars millions of years ago. Well, yeah, actually, yes, they do. That came out on a ticker on CNN 4 years ago. At the bottom, I saw it myself. You know, so they put this information out there, and that goes into some biblical prophecy stuff, which is like the whole fact that God told the Luciferian energy that they have to disclose everything and tell us everything. So what they do is they leak the information, they drip the disclosure, and they put it in entertainment, movies, and everything like that. So it's right in our face, but at the same time, they basically disclosed it. But the really interesting part of this whole thing was this one line that stood out. Multiple technologies, even technology to slow down the speed of light. Wait a second. What happens when you go as close to speed of light as possible? Well, time slows down. What happens when you hit, when time slows down? Okay, this is slow down the speed of light as opposed to time slowing down. So when you go fast, all the way up to the speed of light, time slows down until you get to the basically the 0 point, which is all time stillness, right? When you go faster than the speed of light, which is basically you get to a point where you're actually going back in time. So technologies to slow down the speed of light. It's a very interesting announcement there as basically a form of technology that can be utilized for space travel. And who owns it? Robert Bigelow. What is he doing? Experimenting on creating craft in order to do things that UFOs can do. What are we seeing in space? Well, in our airs, we're seeing all types of craft. Many of them could be extraterrestrial or interdimensional beings, but many of them are using these technologies that have been reverse engineered. What they did is they basically had been utilizing these technologies for decades, right? Some of these craft, like the TR-13, I think it's called the TRB-13, I forget the exact name. That craft's been around for decades, but they're only releasing the information now saying that they have the technology to do that. So part of the reason could possibly be that they are attempting to basically disclose what they've already created by saying, oh, look what we're figuring out now. Oh, here's the craft. Even though these craft have been out for decades and that they've actually mastered it to a whole other level, that is one of the theories of what's going on. Let's see where we're going to go with this. Okay, let's just do this before we do the documents, just because I think it's a pretty cool thing to really talk about, is the understanding that we are advanced technology ourselves, right? So talking about the human DNA right now, less than 2% of our DNA produces proteins. The rest, which is 98.5% of our DNA, is what they call the junk DNA. So discovermagazine.com published this saying, many of the junk sections do have important roles, including regulating how DNA is transcribed and translated from there into proteins. If protein coding sequences are the notes of a symphony, then some of the non-coding sequences act like the conductor, influencing the pace and repetitions of the masterpiece. What does this mean? Well, we're now discovering that the junk DNA isn't so junk. It's what we all believed all along, that a lot of the junk DNA has protein coding sequences that are literally, or the non-coding sequences that are literally like the conductors telling the coding sequences how to operate and influence, and influence, your existence. There's also parts of the DNA that are dormant, that seem to be dormant, but it looks like that this junk DNA is a misunderstood genetic material. However, there does seem to be some DNA that we're not sure what it's going to do, what it's supposed to do. And that could potentially be that DNA is not actually viable for this dimensional experience. And as we shift into another dimension, that these DNA strands come online. So could it be when our DNA is fully activated, it creates a frequency shift and allows us to perceive other realities? We're talking about before, perceiving realities. Do we have an ability to have limitless human potential? And here is the Merkaba light body. So talking about advanced technology, there's the spacecraft. We're talking about the slowing down of the speed of light. But we also have something called the Merkaba, which is the light body. A lot of people have speculated, channelers, a lot of individuals have said that the Merkaba is basically a device that is multifaceted for sure, but we can utilize in order to travel organically to other planets and other places in our universe or even beyond. So the Merkaba light body could actually be almost like our own spaceship that can transfer our consciousness from one place into another. So this right here is talking about the chakra systems and how you can tap into chakra systems. The humming effect is different sounds and tools that we can utilize to shift our consciousness to be at an ability to perceive these realities, because that's what I'm really talking about here. What we've just discussed is really just about what we can do to perceive these realities. Not only do we have the technology that is coming out to doing it, but we are able to do it ourselves. So what was once ridiculed by mainstream media and government is now being considered seriously, right? What happened around, I think it was 8 years ago now, was a huge shift in regards to this. Before 8 years from now, plus or minus a few months to a year, there was this kind of mandate, if you will, for all mainstream media outlets to basically ridicule anything UFO ET related. Don't take it seriously. Some small stations from like local places in different countries, in different states that were more independently owned, didn't really have to listen to regulators and government oversight. All the mainstream media pretty much has some level of regulation when it comes to the government, but more of the independent ones were able to talk about UFOs and ETs more seriously. But then the ones that really talked about it seriously are the ones that are now considered the conspiracy theorists. So it was so ridiculed that you would have on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, NBC, you would have a segment on UFOs and ETs, but usually it would be something like this. Somebody would be wearing a big green suit of an ET. Someone would jump out of nowhere looking like an ET with an antenna on top of the head. They would have some weird noise in the background, like do 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 do, and then they would have huge smiles and laughs on the face, like a fun segment, like they're talking about some Entertainment Tonight story. That's how it was. But all of a sudden, there was a change, and here, was the defining moment of the change. Obviously, it happened over a period of time. Obviously, it happened because there was a lot of movement towards disclosure, and they had to hijack it and take disclosure by the wheels and had to make it their own and had to be the ones to disclose it before everybody else knew. And there were also other big milestone moments that occurred that really moved towards this. But here was the rebranding of the UFO moment, okay? So this was when Hillary Clinton went on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. Well, first of all, what happened like a year or months before that was the WikiLeaks emails. The WikiLeaks emails released information between Clinton, Edgar Mitchell, the the third man to walk on the moon that, was really into UFOs and ETs, the noetic center of consciousness, and was, worked with a lot of speakers in the field when it comes to disclosure and consciousness. And Obama was on it. Tom DeLonge was on it, and a few other people. There's email threads. Just because they're the ones having these conversations doesn't mean that, I'm not saying that these guys are good or bad people. I have my own opinions on them that we're not going to get into anything political in regards to that. But I'm just giving you the story of what occurred. So there was this email thread in the WikiLeaks emails, and it came out. Thousands and thousands of emails actually about UFOs and ETs, right? Not just from them, from other people in the government. And but it came out with a huge WikiLeaks dump of many other things, So a lot of people weren't focusing on the UFOs and ETs, but some people were. Who was? Grant Cameron was probably studying it more than anyone. We did like 3 different events specifically on that on our YouTube already. Still on our YouTube. I was doing it, going through like with a fine-tooth comb, looking at different things. And the information that they were saying was mind-blowing. We need to have a Skype call about the benevolent non-human intelligences in our solar system. We need to have a Skype call about the benevolent non-human intelligences in our solar system. Obama was on that email, right? So whether this was the moment that made this other moment that was the milestone shift that I'm about to tell you happened or not, regardless, that's what occurred, and they needed to get behind it all. And partly, I don't think they really wanted disclosure on this level. They just wanted political gain and to continue corruption in the world, because the real disclosure doesn't happen from these guys. The real disclosure doesn't happen from DOD, Department of Defense, Pentagon, militarization. How do we reverse engineer this technology? How do we use this to create better weapons to protect ourselves? How do we tell everybody that these ETs are demons and they're coming down and we need to protect ourselves against them? All of these things have come out from government officials or people related to them. So I don't believe any of that kind of thing is, ultimately it's all happening for our betterment, right? But specifically within this 3D reality, their actions aren't really about let's all create a real galactic family and reconnect with our humanity. So fast forward, we have Hillary Clinton that is now on the Jimmy Kimmel show. So all the talk shows got completely hijacked by what's the best word? By the controlling elite around 8 to 10 years ago. There were definitely, a part of it before, but a little more independent. But it completely became like the talking heads for the elite. And like I could do a 2-hour presentation just to prove that. I even have like leaked audio clips of talk show hosts as well and what they've said and things like. So anyways, when any presidential candidate goes on to any of these talk shows, it's never freestyled. They're never like, let's just go there, have a conversation, ask me whatever you want. Everything is scripted. Everything is scripted. And this one is so scripted, it was just so obvious. Like the controlled robotic way that they were communicating was so entirely scripted. So Hillary goes on this thing, and as Jimmy Kimmel did with her husband and other candidates that have come across, said, will you release the UFO files at Area 51? Will you look at those again? I'm so curious. Will you do that? And then she goes, Jimmy. They're no longer called UFOs. They're called UAPs. This was the defining moment of the rebranding from UFOs to UAPs. UAPs hadn't been used predominantly out there yet. UAPs was something that they only used within the government. What was occurring? A rebranding of the term UFO after decades of ridiculing the word UFO. They couldn't continue. They were ready to disclose some stuff. They were ready to put some stuff out there. They're ready to use it for political gain and to rally whatever the agenda is. I'm not going to even speculate on it, right? They were ready to do something, but they couldn't. They wanted to utilize a term that would take us away from the ridiculed nature of this term for the last few decades, like 50 years. So UAP came about, unidentified aerial phenomena, which also is spoken about within the DOD as the UAT unidentified aerial threat. Okay, so there we go. Now they're talking about a threat again, right? How, like, they don't have any evidence to suggest this is a threat. They only have evidence to suggest that these visitations are benevolent because they've only done good things. They've only helped us out. There's been no evidence of any back and forth war, shooting with them. None of that has come out in any of these documents or any of these whistleblowers. But because the DoD has the technology to perceive them, and because they're showing up at military bases and nuclear places, the military are the one that have the power, the control of our skies to basically be like, something's going on. Anything that's not us is a threat, UAP. So this was the moment. That was a long way of getting to this slide here. That was the moment that the mainstream media, has shifted. So it was that plus Tom DeLonge. So Tom DeLonge, the lead singer of Blink-182, and he came on Joe Rogan's show, and Joe Rogan's show, where he told a bunch of truths on there, he was taken down as the figurehead of the disclosure movement that they put in place right after he went on Joe Rogan. Years later, like a year ago, he came out and he told the truth about why he was taken down. He went on Rogan and he told them too much. He showed Rogan the images of the TR-13, the TRB-13. He did screen shares of it. He talked about the technology they had. Wait a second. Tom DeLonge just said a few years ago that this technology hadn't been created yet. Now he's on Joe Rogan showing this technology has existed for decades. He was taken down as the figurehead. Who was replaced him? Well, one of the people on To the Stars Academy, and then the other person was the ex-UFC fighter Jeremy Corbell, who did the Bob Lazar movie. Put another old enough but young-looking dude that will appeal to the millennials and the masses out there, Jeremy Corbell. And then Lou Elizondo was the head of the ATIP program that Tom DeLonge brought out. Let's push Lou Elizondo as the front man of all this, and let's have Lou Elizondo say the opposite and say, I'm not working for the government. I left the government because I am trying to tell you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. I left them, and they can't do anything about it, right? So I have my own theories on him and where he's coming from and the fact that he still is working for them, but I'm not going to go into speculation. I'm only going to tell you guys the facts today of what's been occurring, right? So we have that whole drama that I just told you right there is the movement from making this thing more reality for us. So once ridiculed is now be taken seriously, and those few years were those years that happened. 7 to 9 years ago, this is all occurring. So this takes me into Project Mockingbird. It was a project undertaken by the CIA in the beginning of the 1950s in which they recruited American journalists into a propaganda network. The recruited journalists were put on a payroll by the CIA and instructed to write fake stories that promoted the views of the intelligence agency. Real story, real fact, this happened. But what happens with many programs like the remote viewing program, like the MK Ultra program, like Project Stargate, like Project Mockingbird, like Project Blue Book, what happens, like ATIP, is as soon as they say this program wasn't working, we're taking it off the books, that's when it gets black budgeted. That's when the money starts getting black budgeted money to that program to continue it. These programs had a huge success. They don't get rid of programs once they have success. So what the CIA was doing was basically implementing agents as news anchors, as journalists, all throughout mainstream media in order to convey the CIA narrative. It became black budget. It became drop the program. It didn't work. Well, actually, it worked very well. It continued up until today. Many different conspiracies that were conspiracy facts, I guess, were hidden up by the CIA. One of which was the Kennedy assassination. Project Mockingbird helped out with covering that up. The other one was the UFO. And the UFO one was one that never left, kept coming up up until now. So just to kind of give you some history of the ridiculing of this whole concept of UFOs. Okay, then shortly after, by the way, the CIA expanded this to foreign media and started having people in foreign media agencies on the CIA payroll, but they were actually parroting CIA propaganda. Okay, let's get into some documents. I'm gonna take a moment here to read the chat, see if there's anything you guys want to share here. And yeah, if you guys want to give me some feedback, are you guys feeling this? Do you have any comments?
Neil, I had an email. Someone asked, oh, excuse me, excuse me. Someone asked if we're using the Merkaba body when we astral travel, or are we simply using consciousness?
Yeah, so the slide after that one was about astral travel, but I wasn't connecting them together. So that's a really good question, because when I see talk to people about astral traveling, a lot of people talk about the silver cord that connects them to the astral body, and they don't describe it in a Merkaba. They describe it completely different. So from my understanding is your Merkaba can take your whole physical body to another world. It's like almost like a force field around your own body that you can activate to take yourself and teleport yourself somewhere else. Whereas the astral travel is your astral body and your physical body still on Earth. So that's my take on that. Okay. Thank you, Susie. Yeah, exactly. Not even aware of the programmings of what they're part of. Okay, back to this. So just to show you how they're trying to manipulate us on every single level, really, for this one slide here, is they have two different Roswell documents. One showing Roswell existed and actually happened. Another one trying to prove that it didn't. Completely paradoxical of itself. So this one here is basically trying to prove that it didn't, but this is from July 1994, quite a while afterwards. And they're saying supposedly happened in 47, where the Army Air Force allegedly recovered remains of a crashed flying disc, blah, blah, blah. Research located no records at existing Air Force offices that indicated any cover up by the USAF. However, there's been all types of whistleblowers and other documents talking about Roswell on different websites. And I think this one specifically was on the NSA's website. And this right here is the NSA's website. As you can see at the top, nsa.gov/news features/declassified documents/UFO. And this is one of the directories that they've created. It's interesting because even though there's been a lot of documents released in the last 6 years, and even more so in like the last 10 years, but 6 years where there was a huge amount of releases, a lot of these were actually released in the 90s. But the thing is, when the Freedom of Information Act request was done for these documents, they did not have to put them available online. So they made them available. But the only way you could find these documents is by going to the National Archives in Washington, D.C. and searching through them yourself. And if you didn't know the code names of these things, you can't just go there and look up UFO. You had to know the code names. So the big shift that occurred in the last 6 to 8 years is that a lot of the files and documents that were released, because they still wanted to be able to deny the fact that they hid anything by saying that it was out there, actually now became available online in a searchable format. That was the big shift. They were ready to show it to us all. So you can go look through this here and we can just see, I'll just point out a few of them. French government UFO study. So the French were one of the first, over a decade ago for sure, that released the UFO files and documents. And so did the UK. Nick Pope also was responsible for helping get out a lot of information. A few other places in the world had released everything, but the US government hadn't yet. So many people were thinking, well, if all these countries are releasing their documents, why isn't disclosure happening? And it seems that the US government, or whatever elite is controlling this government, has some sort of chokehold on the UFO topic. And it's said by some researchers and whistleblowers that Russia and the US can't agree on anything. But one thing they did agree on is to not tell everybody about UFOs, because there's some hardcore information in regards to the connection to UFOs for both of those countries, the reverse engineering programs both of them have, and also the the reverse engineering program that that both of them have, and the remote viewing programs, because Russia also has a very advanced remote viewing program that all started from research that the US government was doing for remote viewing that then became open source information around the world. And many governments have actually started their own remote viewing programs. If the government is in the know, government has enough funds in order to create that program and do the training, pretty much have it done. There's a lot of remote viewing companies in the world. A lot of them are actually publicly traded as shell companies on the stock market to give them the cover up of not being what they really are. So they look like regular companies trading some sort of thing on the stock market as a public company, but truthfully, they're actually agency for remote viewing. That's a private organization that is then hired by these governments, because that's what they do. How do they get away with all this stuff? Well, they hire private companies. If you're a public company, like, because the U.S. government is supposed to be open to telling us all what's going on, unless it's like going to violate national security, right? But even then, there's a thin line. So if they were to do something on their own base that was utilizing reverse engineering craft and everything like that, if it ever comes out that it happened, they could get in trouble for hiding it from us. But if they rent out a part of their base to Bigelow Aerospace, to another a DoD contractor, they do not have to report anything happening there anymore, because they rented that space to a private organization, and the private organization has rights. Private organization used to have rights to not have to disclose everything, right? Because we're in capitalist society. They're trying to make technology. They can't tell everybody it. They could have the information stolen, right? They have rights like that. But then as of like 10 years ago, private organizations are now considered humans in basically in court when it comes to the U.S. government. That actual private corporation has rights as if they're a sovereign human. So I went on a tangent there. But so let's get into some of these here. Navy report country, Cuba, subject UFO. So it's interesting because they have a lot of things here about different things from around the world. Department of State, subject, celestial body observed over Antarctica. Wow. UFO political report for August 1965. Project Blue Book was supposed to be over by then, but it continued. Another side note, when ATIP came out, they told about the ATIP program, 2007 to 2008 to 2012 or something like that. And then they said it closed, but it didn't really close. It went black budget, and they continued this. When the congressional hearings happened just as over like a couple of years ago, the first one out of these last two that occurred, when they were talking about all of this stuff, they were saying that the congressional hearing, I lost my train of thought there, so I'll get back to that when I remember it. So going back to these here, celestial body observed over Antarctica, UFO hypothesis and survival questions. They even have a plan of what happens if ETs visit our planet. Not on the NSA's website, but the government in general has that. Report of Air Force research regarding the Roswell incident. And look at this one right at the bottom. This one's one of the most interesting ones to me. Key to the extraterrestrial message by H. Campaign. Let's get into that one a bit. See if I can make this larger. No. Oh, oops. Went all over the place there. Okay, we got, okay. This individual here, Dr. Campaign, presented a series of 29 messages from outer space and extraterrestrial intelligence, NSA Technical Journal. And in the special mathematics and engineering issue of this journal, the following article develops a key to these messages. Paragraph numbers parallel the serial number of the messages reprinted in the appendix below. This includes 2 new series. At every step in the solution, we make a guess at the meaning. Evidence will quickly accumulate to verify or refute this guess. The possibility of ambiguity of 2 consistent solutions is very remote. Only in the last steps where verification is very thin. Could this happen? So what are they saying here? Well, it seems the US government sent a message out to space. And it seems that we got a response from them. And what this article is here is them trying to figure out and decode what this message means. So they show us the message, the response, but they don't actually show us what it translates to. But they do say here that they were having issues translating it and figuring it out, but they don't say that they didn't figure it all out. They did figure quite a lot of it out, but they weren't able to translate and code everything. In this moment that I say here, Or so either that's the case, or they did say it all, but they didn't want to disclose the fact that they did. But that's besides the point. The point is a message was received. And here is the message in A, B, C's, and all that in code. In the most recent issue, they discussed certain aspects of the extraterrestrial intelligence and included several messages to test the reader's ingenuity. In the following pages, Dr. Campaign offers additional communications from outer space. Recently, a series of radio messages were heard coming from outer space. The transmission was not continuous, but was cut by pauses into pieces, which could be taken as units, for they were repeated over and over again. The pauses show here as punctuations. The various combinations have been represented by letters of the alphabet so that the messages can be written down. Each message except the first is given here only once. The serial number of the messages have been supplied for each reference. So they're basically saying we got this message, but we don't know what the message is. So that's very interesting. This is just the least of it. Like, as a person that's so like curious about all this and like loves to read these articles and put them in a file on my phone so I could like show them to people if they ever like have a question or doubt anything. Well, some of the things that I saw were very interesting. One document I saw was upstate New York, 1959, right? A document from 1959, upstate New York. Someone finds a crashed UFO. And this crashed UFO has this metallic shimmer to it. This is on the FBI's government documents, which is this page right here, I believe. And as they approach the writing that looked like Egyptian hieroglyphs on the UFO, the hieroglyphs was changed to something else. They would move their hand towards it, and the hieroglyphs would change into another forms. 1959 article. And here we go is the FBI website, flying saucers, German scientists on article on flying disc, light phenomenon. What is that? Recent sightings of unexplained objects. Flying saucers in Spain and North Africa. This is a global thing. They're looking everywhere for this, and a lot of the documents and reports are given to the US government. So why is it that all this is out there and they have been doing this for so long and hidden it from us and not told us the truth? Why is it that it seems that there was Project Blue Book and the Project Blue Book continued? J. Allen Hynek, for example, Paul Hynek, who is his son, has spoken on our platform multiple times on PortalToAscension. But J. Allen Hynek was the guy that was actually hired by the US government for Project Blue Book, right? The UFO research agency of the government. So what had occurred was in World War II, as the, as we had craft flying around all over Earth, right? All types of fights were occurring between, Germany and everything. So all that was occurring. And there was all these lights that were being reported all the time. The World War II UFO sightings were just out of this world, right? Multiple faceted, because Dolores Cannon, as she speaks about, nuclear energy, a call out to the universe, ET's coming down to make sure that we don't blow ourselves up, ET's incarnating on Earth to make sure we don't destroy ourselves, ET's influencing on the earthly experience so that we don't split the atom and destroy other dimensions. So much was occurring. So as we were having this war and battles everywhere, there was UFOs sightings all over the place. And then there was a name given to them. And the name was a name after a band that's a very famous band. Does anybody know what the name is? If you know the name, put it in the chat. And I'm going to get back into the slide here. Yay, good job, Don. You get some sort of prize. If you hit me up, I'll give you something. But yeah, exactly. The name was Foo Fighters. And the band Foo Fighters was named after, the fact that these UFOs were showing up and they were calling them Foo Fighters. So after this happened, this is what I was saying. So after this occurred, right, all these Foo Fighters occurred, and there's all these reports, and coming out of World War II, the US government had all these reports that they couldn't deny that something was occurring, but they also had some sort of awareness of what was happening. Now, this gets into the conspiracy of Eisenhower and his connection to the ETs and having a contract with an ET race. So there was something going on where either they were like, yo, what's happening? This can't be real. We need to discredit it. Or there was actually an interaction with an ET race and they needed to show and move everybody's awareness elsewhere, especially after San Antonio in 1945, UFO crash over there. That was the first documented UFO crash, completely swept under the rug. I had the privilege of interviewing the last surviving member of the sighting. He was a 12-year-old kid at the time. He was riding his bike. UFO crash right in San Antonio, New Mexico. Him and his brother drove up to it, went to it. The UFO was on fire. There were some ET beings with their heads out of the structure. He gives this whole depiction. I have the interview footage still. I haven't made it into a documentary yet. And as this was occurring, right, there was basically like the first crash site that occurred because of the nuclear explosions that were happening in New Mexico at that time. So San Antonio, New Mexico was really the number one experience, but that one was really methodically pushed under the rug, and all the energy and attention went to Roswell. So there's a huge conspiracy about the whole thing about Roswell. The US government wanted us to think more about Roswell than San Antonio, New Mexico. You go to San Antonio, New Mexico right now to the crash site where this occurred, and there is a round disc shape in this crash site, right, of a UFO still. I went to it, and it literally nothing grows inside that circle, and there's plants all around it. Like, so some sort of energy, some sort of frequency that's not allowing for anything to grow there. So it's very interesting. So the reason why that they say that we're not ready for UFO disclosure, there's a few different things here, but one of the things that is said quite often is they aren't ready for the truth. We're going to go crazy. We're not going to understand the reality of it all, and we aren't ready for the truth, right? So that's one of the things that has been put out there by the elite. I would say that we need to know the truth, and then we just need to deal with the consequences, and then eventually harmonize ourselves to the new reality of our truth. Because if we keep going down a lie of who we are, where we come from, and the visitations that are occurring, we can eventually get down into a fractalized downward spiral where we're at such a lower level of consciousness, so disconnected, that it would be harder for us to understand this truth. But the understanding is that it's not just like these beings are visiting us, it's like our star family is visiting us. We're intrinsically connected to these beings. They're our ancestors, and I don't believe that many people in the DoD, who is, going to the next point here, focusing on the weaponization of space, are really focusing on the fact that we are a one big galactic family. So another realization is the weaponization of space. When Tom DeLonge came out and did his broadcast 8 years ago with Lou Elizondo, NSA members, Chris Mellon, all these people on this back panel from his Twitter feed, right, which was very interesting that he just basically came out. This was the first government official saying UFOs exist. This was it. In your face, panel of people there, all left their jobs in NASA, NSA, CIA, ATIP 4 to 5 days earlier. How more obvious can you get? Oh yeah, I'm only doing this because I'm a private person now and I can go ahead and tell you the truth. Oh, when did you last work for the government? Every one of them. Oh, 1 to 3 days ago? It was completely controlled in a way for them to be in the private sector so that they could say this is private citizens and not be representatives of the government, but still Project Mockingbird style on the payroll. Okay. So when they were talking about all of this stuff, what were they focusing on? Not the beings that were driving the craft, not like who are these beings, where are they coming from? Try to go through all this UFO stuff, and maybe out of 100% of the thousands and thousands and thousands of videos and articles in the last 8 years, there's probably like a sliver, 1% or less, even speaking about who are these beings, who's driving it, what does this mean for us? Almost all of them are exclusively speaking about the technology. What are they doing? What is this technology doing? How can it do that? We can't even do that without physics. What would happen if we had this technology? Tom DeLonge said, what would happen if we were able to triangulate this technology through an app that we're going to release to the whole world? So whenever you have a UFO sighting, all you do is pinpoint where you are on the map, and then we'll be able to come and triangulate it and take a look to see if we can find this technology. Oh, by the way, next live stream, we actually have some of this technology. We found it at a crash retrieval site, and now we're trying to see how we can utilize this to better our technology on Earth. Wait a second, there's one thing that you missed there. Who are these beings? Who's driving these craft? Why are they doing what they're doing? What is going on here? You know, taking out the consciousness element of it all. So the weaponization of space has been a huge part of this, which is why the DoD is really the ones behind this all, trying to protect us from a foreign threat, right? Some of these people are really ignorant to it and really just are in the military and think that, oh my God, there's a threat out there. Somebody's coming to get us, ETs. Oh, like if there are aliens out there, what are they going to want from us? What would we want if we went somewhere else? Resources, of course. Oh my God, we don't want anybody to take our resources. We need to protect ourselves. And then there's others that are in the know on the higher levels that have a complete understanding of what's going on. And I'll show you an article in a second from the US government that proves that, because it's called the Project Stargate, the analysis of the Stargate program, I think it's called. So there are those that are aware that we are all one consciousness, universal consciousness. We have a galactic family out there, and we're connected to these beings, and they've been visiting us for hundreds of thousands of years. And even government documents showing the fact that they're aware that human consciousness goes into cycles, 26,000 year cycles of evolution and devolution. So there are those that are in the know. Witnessing UFOs at nuclear facilities. If you do a search on the internet, UFOs and nuclear bases, you're going to find all these articles that just list all these sightings at nuclear bases. Well, now this is what really gets the people that are ignorant to this whole concept really riled up. Why are they at our nuclear bases? They must want to attack us. They want to destroy us. They want our enemies to get us, right? Well, the reason why they're at nuclear facilities is what even mainstream scientists has proven now, that the EMP frequency of a nuclear blast penetrates into other dimensions. And another presentation I have talks about CERN. The quote from CERN is that they have now been able to collide two electrons together. But when they collide two electrons together, there is a particle of that electron that disappears. They were wondering where that particle went. They researched it for years and years. And then this is what they understood. And this is what their conclusion was. A part of this collision releases an electron into fifth dimensional space. That's a quote from CERN. By colliding these particles together, some sort of graviton is released from this particle, disappears from our physical reality, and is gone where? Into a fifth dimensional space, right? So seeing these, so basically this is to prove that nuclear blast, splitting the atom, affects other dimensions. These dimensions are stacked on top of each other. You know, we are basically in this advanced holographic projection of consciousness. We have the ability to pierce through the computer programming. When we do that, we become very advanced humans, and we're able to see this matrix as it is and be more conscious creators rather than unconscious creators, which is what we've been for so long. So as we consciously start creating our reality, we're going to be able to manipulate, if you will, our own third dimensional experience. So what is occurring when we're having these explosions go on and we're breaking through dimensions is another element of unconsciously creating our reality. And as we're unconsciously creating our reality, we're affecting other life in other dimensions. So that's why so many of these sightings are happening at military bases and nuclear bases. There's been at least 3 documented nuclear code scramulations, if that's even a term. And that's basically the Russians and the US government, their codes were scrambled, but they were locked out of their own system for a while and didn't have access to their own nuclear codes. Even the Russians even released a document based on that whole concept of happening. And that goes to the understanding that Dolores Cannon spoke on, and many people speak on, is the fact that they don't want us to destroy ourselves. Why did Roswell and San Antonio happen in the States 1 mile away from nuclear explosions on the same exact day? Nuclear testing. You know, they were observing what we were doing. Here's a quote from a Pentagon representative. Our aviators train as they fight. Any intrusions that may compromise the security of our operations, tactics, or procedures is of great concern. As the investigation of unidentified aerial phenomena sightings is ongoing, we will not discuss individual sightings, reports, or observation. This is a really great example to show you why they're scared. to show you why the DoD and the military is behind it. They train as they fight. Any intrusion, it doesn't matter if you're benevolent or not, you're intruding. This is our airspace. The only way you're not intruding is if you let us know you're coming and we say yes. Otherwise, no matter if you're positive or negative, you're intruding. That's the whole understanding of the military. That may compromise the security of may compromise. Doesn't matter, just the thought that they could do it is of great concern. So we're not going to talk about it anymore because it's a national security threat, and understanding it as a national security threat allows us to not have to tell you the truth. Here's some articles here. If you're watching this on YouTube later, when we broadcast this as well, you can just type this in, ufoevidence.org/topic/nuclear. That will show you a listing of nuclear sightings. The other one above there too will show you a listing and an explanation of what actually occurred at those bases. All right, let's do a time check, shall we? 6:22. All right, I think what I'll do here is, yes, I'll just show you these 2 other articles and then we'll close out and see if you have any questions. Once I get started, guys, it's really hard to stop. So I gotta stop myself. This is so exciting. So interesting. Okay, here we go.
It's exciting, and we're all just sitting here waiting for more.
So the other ones I was going to show you was the quite possible fact and evidence that there is or was life on Venus. And okay, now that I just said that, I feel like it would be rude of me not to actually show it. All right, here, let's do this one. Okay. Yeah, we'll do Venus. We'll show a couple, be like another 15 minutes. I wanted to end with a poem too, so let's see if we can do that. Venus, where you at? Here we go. All right, so there has been a molecule that has been found on Venus. It's called phosphine. It's an unexplained molecule, and it hints at life. Phosphine has been detected in Venus's atmosphere, raising the thrilling question of whether the molecule might be a sign of life on the planet. On rocky planets, life is the only known source of the compound. Although it forms without a helping hand near energetic cores of gas giants, but this is on Venus. Life seems impossible on the surface of the solar system's hottest world, but in the middle of its cloud layer on Venus, it's like a chill 75-degree Fahrenheit. It's actually the perfect weather to house life. And that happens to be the same area in which we're detecting phosphine. Whether it's life or not, it has to be really exotic mechanism, says quantum astronomers. So phosphine has been detected, and so phosphine is formed naturally via the anaerobic decay of phosphorus-containing organic matter. It's made industrially from white phosphorus. So basically, the only 2 ways this can be made is industrially by actual people making it, or from the decay of organic matter. And they're finding it in the cloud layer at 75-degree Fahrenheit weather in Venus. So while conditions on the surface of Venus are hostile to life, the environment of the upper cloud deck is temperate. So this goes even deeper. There's more information on it, but I just wanted to share that with you guys real quick, that there are a lot of anomalies, including, what I had right here about Mars, that Mars has actually slowly been moving away from our sun. And for quite a lot of millennia, it was actually in the Goldilocks zone, and has now been proven by mainstream science to actually have had, rivers, lakes, oceans. They've actually done imaging of Mars of how it probably looked millions of years ago. And within that, they've shown like Mars, was a water planet. And that's pretty much a given now to the mainstream as well as the Earth alternative world. And there is a project called Project Stargate. Now going to these programs here. So Project Stargate, which is so interesting because you used to be able to type Project Stargate and go directly to the CIA's website and see the document, but now they've taken it down or removed it or taken it from the algorithm. I used to show it all the time, but I never downloaded it. I would just go to the website, right? So now you got to go elsewhere to find it. It's probably still on their website, but I think they just took it off like Google so it wouldn't list. There's articles about it and everything. But Project Stargate was a remote viewing project. of the US government. To provide an overview of remote viewing focuses on definitions, operations, management, participation, benefits, primary and secondary methodologies, categories of tasking, types of targets, and operational methodology. That's what this whole entire thing was basically about, is to really figure out all elements of remote viewing and how to fine tune it. But within that, they have something extremely interesting. It starts off like this. Target. The target is Mars, year 1 billion BC. CIA's website. Mars, 1 billion BC, Project Stargate. And what it comes after that is a back and forth between a remote viewer and a CIA agent. And what they're doing is they're describing Mars at 1 billion BC. What did it look like? Who's there? What do the structures look like? How tall are they? What are the features? That's what the document is. And so not only, they start off in a certain time on Mars history, and then when he couldn't see certain things, he saw a lot of fossils. The remote viewers saw all these fossils, giant fossils and ancient structures, pyramids that have been there for so long. So then the remote viewing agent, the CIA agent, asked him to go even further back. And they go back to 1 billion BC. And then when he goes to 1 billion BC, a thriving civilization is there, right? 1 billion BC, of course, Earth time, whatever that correlates to on Mars. And a thriving civilization, he talks about how tall there are, huge giants on the Earth, on the planet, talks about the pyramid structures. So now we can think of one of two things. Either, whoa, what was happening on Mars all that time ago and how we connected to it? Wow, we have some evidence that there was life there. Or you can be like, why was the government so focused on this? Even if you think it's BS and they're not legit, just the whole understanding of like that they spend the time, energy, and money into even focusing on that makes you wonder what they really know about the nature of reality, which takes me to this next article. The analysis and assessment of gateway process. This is the one that is the huge, pretty huge, I guess 29 pages, pretty big. Look at all this text here, right? That basically talks about time-space dimensions, biofeedback, gateway and hemisync. Hemisyncing the brains, the masculine and feminine brains, how to sync them together to achieve a level of consciousness. Frequency following response. Resonance, the role of resonance in the universe and through our brain entrainment. Brain stimulation. Energy entrainment. Consciousness and energy. Before our explanation can proceed any further, it is essential to define the mechanism by which the human mind exercises the function known as consciousness, and to describe them the way that consciousness operates to deduce meaning from the stimuli which it receives. To do this, we must first consider the fundamental character of the material world in which we have our physical existence, in order to accurately perceive the raw stuff for which our consciousness must work. This is a government document. The first point which needs to be made is that two terms, matter and energy, tend to be misleading if taken to indicate two distinctly different states of existence in the physical world that we know. Indeed, if the term matter is taken to mean solid substance, as opposed to energy, which is understood to be a force of some sort, then the use of the former is entirely misleading. Science now knows that both electrons, which spin in the energy field located around the nucleus of an atom, and the nucleus itself are made of nothing more than oscillating energy grids. Everything is frequency. What are they saying here in this one specifically? Energy and matter are the same thing, perceived differently. The only way to get to a remote viewing state to see consciousness is not to see them as differently, but to see them as all oscillating energy grids. Solid matter is the strict construction of the term, simply does not exist. Rather, atomic structure is composed of oscillating energy grids surrounding by other oscillating energy grids, which orbit extraordinary high speeds. So, I'm not going to go more here. Holograms, holographic universe, even information about that. The part encodes the whole. All information can be found in one part. Consciousness matrix. Evaluation. Let's just do one paragraph here. To the extent that the gateway succeeds in bringing about refinement in energy matrix of the mind, it succeeds in expanding or altering human consciousness so that it can perceive without recourse to the intercession of the physical senses, such that even more of the universal hologram can ultimately, calling us a hologram, universal hologram, can ultimately be perceived and understood. Marilyn Ferguson has written that the theories of the Primbub and the Boab appear to be an account for all transcendental experiences, paranormal events, and normal perceptual oddities. So this is pretty amazing. So this article also, and other articles, also refer to the cycles of time, that they have an awareness that humanity was at a higher level of consciousness and then devolved to a lower state and go through this cycle over and over again. What would happen if we all knew this collectively on the planet? What if this is taught to us? Well, one of many things, but one thing for sure is that we can actually navigate our reality and existence as conscious creators and not be a victim to it. Let's see, is there any more I want to share with you? All right, so that's all I'm going to share with you. So before we
Neil, could you put that document in the chat?
Yeah. Here we go. Oh, this one is on the website, so yeah, perfect. All right, everybody. So let's just all take a deep breath in right now. Deep breath in with me, in and in. And let's sigh it out. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for letting me share with you. And over to you, Sheila, if you guys have questions. Let's get into it.
Pretty amazing stuff. Thank you so much for sharing all that information with us tonight. Absolutely amazing. People were almost like with their mouths dropped open and trying to digest it all, kind of scratching their heads and the whole 9 yards. But what I'd like to do right now is go ahead and open this up. If anyone has any questions that they have for Neil, just go ahead, use your little reactions button, raise your hand, and let's get those questions answered. You got the master sitting right here. All right, Stone. Come on up.
Hello and hi from little New Zealand. Okay, Neil, love your stuff. Totally love it. Okay, I'm a contactee. I have a lot of different forms that come in through multi-dimensional accessing. One of those portals that they use, we commonly label as night terrors. My last experience was 2 nights ago, more terrifying than the ones I've experienced previously. So in your conversations today, you pulled out strands all over the show, mate, from DNA to junk DNA to, you know, ancestral bloodlines, you know, the works. So I would like to know, as an experiencer, a regular experiencer, when was the last time you had an encounter and download and the form of communication it took, whether it was flashes, whether it was frequency, what was it? And we need to be letting the others out there know that this went back way before the 1950s, before the 1940s, how our lives in reincarnation has now, we are them back then in the now, experiencing and knowing the knowledges of then and now with the communication levels of the different types of ETs, solid matter, to the dimensional energy form matter, and how matter as a frequency and density plays a role in the colors that we are seeing being bombarded and manipulated on this terra firma. Does that make sense?
Sort of. I understood what you said, but let me see if I can understand what the questions are. All right. So firstly, type of communication I get, right? So for a long time, I was like, when I woke up in 2001, and, you know, then I started getting really into ET stuff around like 2003, 2004, and going to all types of channelings. I would think that, you know, I was one of the people that didn't get the downloads, didn't get the information. And I would even say to people that I had to download when I was actually did ayahuasca in 2016, that I wasn't meant to have the direct conversations. I'm supposed to have this feeling within me and do it without needing to even have the interaction. But then as time progressed, I started realizing I was actually getting information and downloads. And it was actually coming in packages of awareness. That in 2008, I had a 20-year download of PortalToAscension from 2008 to 2028. Everything that I was going to do, from the events to the conferences to the webinars, pretty much all mapped out in my head, ultimately to creating an actual ascension village in 2028. And so when I started trusting and realizing that this was happening more and more, it started happening more. When instead of happening unconsciously to me, happened consciously. I will get into a state where I'll get an entire marketing plan of how to get this one event out to the masses. When specific events happen that really are in alignment with like what the star beings want to do, right? Because there's all types of events. We don't just do star beings events, even though you could kind of say everything's connected to the stars. But when we're doing these events, there's some that are just so profoundly need to be out there, whether they're free or paid events. I'll get this whole entire 2-minute download, hardcore, just coming out of me of everything that needs to be done to really make this successful. The other form of communication is my spoken word poetry. All of that, I create most of my poetry. I create within 30 seconds to a minute tops. And it's just comes out of me. I'm not even, that's why I'm so happy I have a phone and I'm not writing it. Because if I'm writing it, it'll take me forever. So on the phone, I'm just So that's what's occurring. Now, I'll just add this to that is, I've been doing a lot of work on myself lately over the years, for sure, but over the last couple of years, even more so. And I've been getting to a state of neutrality, inner peace within myself, self-love. And as I'm doing that, I'm getting more things popping up into my consciousness and a connection to them. I'm feeling way more connected. I'm starting my days in reverence to the one, in reverence to being of service. And I feel the more and more I do that, the more I'm guided. So I get these downloads and packages, but I also feel that I'm being guided. And a great example of how I'm being guided is I am directly guided in a way not to work with certain people that probably aren't of the best interest of humanity. And this has been happening for 15 years. And then all of a sudden something will come out about that individual, and they just happen to be all the people that some intuitive awareness was coming to me to really not do anything or interact with that person, and I don't, on my platform, we're non-biased. We don't criticize anyone. So I don't speak on it, but I just really follow the energy. And as I got to a point after a decade of this happening, consistently, because I've worked with thousands of people. So there's a lot of people that have come into my radar. And as I've been trusting it more and more, now I have more of a trust of my own innate abilities and my intuition that I'm being guided in the right direction. So those are kind of the things I had. But I'll say this, I actually did for 2008 to 2014, I was asking to be abducted every night, guys. I was literally please take me. And it's I was crying. I was you think I'm passionate now? You should have seen me back then. I was just everybody must know. And I'm just completely in a state of emotional experience, just saying, please take me, not because I want to leave the earth, but I need to know you're real. I need you to show me that you're real, because I want to know that I'm not just doing all this stuff for nothing, And then everything has shifted since then. I've completely, and I got to say, my linear mind was appeased a lot by documents coming out that showed that everything that we knew as real has been now validated on some level, Yeah.
So can I ask you, what are the experiences that you've had, and when was the last form of contact? How did that contact come in? Because I'm about now, I'm like you, I've now realized that there is a connection. It is happening. I do have self-worth. I do know what my value is. I'm a portal. I have a level of communication skills, abilities, and that is a constant. That is constantly happening with different beings. So when was your last experience? I'm asking because I've had a lot of different, but they're all connected experiences to forms of communication with beings that are here in the organic, like us, like animals, like cows and vegetables and plants, to those that are coming in through the different frequency densities to communicate with us. How do you hear them? I hear them through frequency, light flashes, stargates, different beings coming in, and regular night terrors. So I think it's time that we start sharing. If we're having these experiences, we need to start sharing how these experiences are coming in, the so-called symptoms and effects for those that are waking up to what we've already been experienced to.
Okay, and Stone, honey, I'm going to have to, so that everybody else has a chance to, I'll have to have that to be your last question.
Yeah,
okay?
Not a problem.
All right,
how's it coming for me? How's the communication happening for me? Is not like a verbal conversation, not a being appearing in my head and me having this telepathic exchange with something there, but it's basically just all of a sudden a data set of information unlocked in my consciousness. Like something was put there and then all this information just comes out, seems like out of a black hole, out of nowhere. And lately, so my last one was in the jungle 2 weeks ago in Guatemala. And it was when I was sitting on the dock, I was going through some things. And I was looking out at the, because we're in the foot of a volcano, looking at the lake and the volcano. And I was actually getting information on how to connect to my heart. So I channeled a whole entire process, a breathwork thing that just came to me in that moment, in which I was actually doing work on myself. So I've had that experience. I've had many experiences like that where it just downloads and I get this information immediately. But then I'll also speak about some of my plant medicine experiences where I've actually interacted with ETs and I've seen more physical and seen craft in which I was actually given different physical body modalities and channeled body modalities to heal parts of my body, put my hip into alignment, to fix my arm hurting, things like that. So I've had a lot of trauma happen to my body, especially as a child. And it seems that a lot of the connection that I get that helps upgrade my body are ways in order to basically bring healing to my physical existence. And then on top of that, the information from PortalToAscension. PTA is 100% divinely inspired. And it just, and as I said, the more I trust in it, the more the information just comes. And just to be more concise, to answer your question entirely there is, so basically my form of communication is just, it seems like a thumb drive is connected into my brain and then the data files just spill out. That's kind of how it works.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Stone. Those were awesome questions. All right, Susie. You have a question?
Neil, I just love you so much. And I just, everything about you, and I study a lot. And every time I think I know a lot, I listen to you and I feel like I got to, you just are, it's just so amazing what you do for us. I love PortalToAscension, and I love just in the last few years how you do meditation and breath first so that we can receive better. I love your poems. I love everything. I just thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for seeing me and just being so beautiful. And always really whenever you share how you feel and what you get, how everything we do affects you, it just really makes me more inspired to do more. Like literally what you just said right now, I'm probably going to create a whole event after this inspired by your words. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, Susie. All right, Gary, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Sheila. Neil, that was great. Thank you. Just a quick question. Are you going to be out at the IONS conference in Salt Lake the first week of September?
Yeah. I'm producing the whole live stream, the webinar. So I'm recording. Okay. You can be there?
I thought so. Yeah, I'd like to get together with you out there.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I'm done at 6 p.m. every day, so we can go out to dinner too.
All right, perfect. I'll be in touch.
Yeah. Nice.
All right. Does anyone have a question for Neil? All right, Gwyneth.
Hi, Neil. Hi, everybody. Neil, thank you so much. Oh my God, I could ask our topic that you chose. And I'm really, really happy to know that you have compiled this information in a way that is so accessible. And thank you. I have a question for you. Since you've been doing this for so long, I am in a space where I have been trying to explain what we all on this call probably understand, that we are not alone. We are just not.
Oh, I think we lost her.
Yeah.
Oh, she's still here, but her audio's out. So maybe it'll come back.
Oh, me? I'm back. I'm back.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Hey,
So
hey, Neil,
last
can
thing,
you make me co-host so I can?
oh yeah. Hold on.
Yeah.
Last thing you said is we're not alone.
Right. So we all know we're not alone. I just want to ask you, how do you actually explain who we are talking about when we say they? They have held information from us. They have, we've been deceived by them. All they are government officials and things like that. It's not like a specific person. And I really would love to know what kind of words I can use to help explain myself when I'm sitting around a dinner table with friends and family. Where do you even start with, we're not alone 101 kind of thing. Thank
All
you
right,
for all that you do. I love PortalToAscension.
Thank you so much. How do you say your name? Is it Gwennet?
It's Gannett.
Okay. Awesome. All right, so this is a good question. So the answer I'll give you is not the answer you should probably use. So I have to give you two answers, because the answer is who are they is one question that you would probably want to know. And then the other one is, how do I convey it to my family and friends, which is another thing where you're not going to just go ahead and tell them the full picture of it all because they won't be able to understand it. So I usually
I'm
don't
asking about, who do I say to my family? I'm
Yeah, exactly.
on the same page as you for the first one.
Yeah.
I understand who that they are.
Right, I understand. So when it comes to most presentations, I don't even get to the they them question, right? But this one, because we're talking about government, we're saying that a lot. I was even going to say in this whole thing how the word government is really limiting, because it's really a worldwide elite. Something is going on that transcends government. So, and I also put a disclaimer normally when I say they, even though they are reflections of us. So the ultimate thing that we need to know is that this darkness is a projection of consciousness that has come to this planet to play this role perfectly for us to have the experiences of darkness that we need so that we can transcend and understand what we are in the light. This is the game we set up for ourselves. We set ourselves a game of amnesia so that we would forget, and that we would have these bad actors, so to speak, that are in place here in order to help us remember who we are. So the they is never truly a negative thing. And when I say they and them, I don't ever think of them as bad. I think of them as a necessary evil, if you will, in order for us to wake up to the truth. So that's what you should probably need to understand as it comes to that. There is no separation. Now, when it comes to the family, this is a hard question because there's different trains of thoughts out there. There's a train of thought that believes that there is some negative ET invasion occurring on the planet, and these beings are connected to these ETs or this archonic energy that is basically has an interest in us not evolving in consciousness. And then there's those that just feel that there is a controlling world, corrupt elite that has been in power for thousands of years, that claim heritage from the Sumerian bloodlines all the way back to the Anunnaki, that they believe that they were the original fallen angels, right? The original fallen angels being the, hence the name Illuminati is given to them a lot, because the fallen angels were the fallen angels with a leader. Who was their leader? Well, it was Lucifer. Lucifer was the most trusted angel of God. God loved Lucifer. Lucifer was a volunteer that came to earth to give this experience. But the angels, the fallen angels came with them, which is why the Illuminati are named the Illuminati. Light, they are the Illuminati, they're the angels of light. Lucifer was the angel of light. I'm not getting into devil or God here. I'm just giving you the whole story of what the controlling elite, believe. So now there's documentaries out there that will show you this. A lot of information out there. There's a documentary called The Family on If you want to really show your family something, watch the documentary called The Family on Netflix, which will show you the
Oh,
controlling,
wonderful. Thank you.
which is show you the controlling elite and the indoctrination that they have from childhood, where they basically are programmed to be these people that basically are just pushing this negative agenda on all of humanity. So I'm going to be, because I know you asked a question that needs a simple answer here. So what they think they have this heritage and this bloodline from the original seeded race of the fallen angels that came to this planet. One of the texts that talks about this will be the Sumerian text of the Anunnaki and the Igigi. They believe they're the Igigi. The Igigi were the second tier of gods. There were two tiers of gods on Nibiru. There was the Anunnaki and the Igigi. The Igigi were the demigods. They didn't have full power. The Anunnaki had full power. The Igigi had lesser powers. They were like Hercules in the Greek text. And they came
I
down to
really
Earth.
understand that because I come from a country where active Anunnaki rituals are still happening. I'm Ethiopian, and I know that those active pieces are still there. I've witnessed them, so that part I am so grateful. Thank you for suggesting the film, because that is where a family or a group are seeing these things. Because whenever I get asked, who is they? People want to hear like a specific name or a group.
Well, this is
thank
something you can't say then. Let me just give you a little paragraph here. So basically, that the ones that maintained and got power thousands of years ago never left their power. As they went out into the rest of the world, and started creating other countries, other parts of that power organization started actually owning and controlling those countries. Some of those elite ended up warring against each other. Some of them actually started creating fake wars, even though the same people own both countries, in order to give us the illusion that something was happening, a separation was going on, when there was always one controlling elite. Every time one elite would win over the other elite, they would rewrite the history books in their own image in order to push their agenda. And now we are basically the product of that, thousands of years of that.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, Donna, I see you've got your physical hand up.
That's funny.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Neil. My first time here, by the way, so it's nice to see everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you. Neil, I'm trying to put everything together that you just said. My background, I'm going to like really condense this, but I started out in childhood with the typical gray extraterrestrials that we've all heard about. There was 3 of them in my room. I was taken at least twice during childhood. I had a few things happen throughout adulthood that I remember little bits and pieces. But, and I'm not sure if this is exactly correct when I say 10 years ago, but a number of years ago, I happened to look out a window one night and I couldn't sleep. It's a long story. And then I happened to look over at another window where the drapery was open, and I saw a large white luminous orb. Okay. It was floating off of the ground. And of course I was totally freaked out. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Right. And I kind of hid behind the drapes and I was looking at it. And then it looked like it seemed conscious, or it seems like a spiritual machine, like conscious or something. And it like jiggled, like it was excited to see me. It seemed almost happy. Anyway, this went on for, believe it or not, 50 minutes, almost an hour. And I know this is going to sound strange, guys. How far away was it? Probably less than 30 feet away. I was not going to go outside. I knew better than that because I knew I didn't know what might happen, right? You hear people getting really sick, radiation, whatever. I didn't know, right? So I stayed inside. I was kind of behind the drape looking out through the window over that way and whatever. And it seemed happy, whatever. So this kept going on for 50 minutes. And as strange as it sounded, after a while, I knew nothing else was going to happen, right? So I just kind of went to bed, and it really wasn't bad. I was sleeping on the sofa because my dog was sick. That's another story. The next night, I'm laying on the sofa again because dog was still sick, and it was almost 24 hours exactly, and my whole body shook like a grand mal seizure, except I was completely conscious. And in fact, my dog was behind me, and I tilted my head back and his eyes were like huge, he was scared. And I'm like, it's okay, Hugo. It's okay. It's okay. Mommy, be okay. So I could still kind of talk and everything, but my whole body's shaking. And I'm like, this is weird. I don't have a history of that. Okay. Never. And the next morning, I didn't tell my family anything right away. I waited a while to say something because I really didn't understand what the heck was going on. Okay. I mean, I kind of thought maybe I was losing my mind. I didn't know. Actually, I thought it might be perimenopausal symptoms. I really didn't know what was happening to me. Anyway, long story short, things got crazy. I really started to get kind of crazy after that for a while. And it seemed kind of dark and evil for a period of time. But to be perfectly honest with everybody here, I really needed to work on a few things in the family. I was too nice, you know what I'm saying? Like I kind of tippy-toed around everything and a little too much of a people pleaser. And so what ended up happening is going through all this really bizarre stuff. I became much stronger, and I went in and I solved problems. I dealt with a problematic marriage I had, and, I got my daughter through a rough time. And anyway, now I'm taking care of my mother, who I think has Alzheimer's at this point. I'm not sure. We haven't got the diagnosis yet, but so ultimately I became a stronger, better version of myself. And I'm trying to understand, does this fit in with what you were just describing about fallen angels and light and all this? I just don't understand it exactly.
Yeah. So it doesn't. So these are different stories here. I would say the fallen angel story is more of like these star beings that came down to Earth, and you were responsible for the original hybridization of humanity from Homo erectus to Homo sapien, in which we basically became the beings that we are now, and then we woke up and became sentient beings, right? That are able to interact and have thoughts and create and all that stuff. That's something different. So what you're referring to is having an experience that basically upgraded you, created some sort of upgrade. Now, I'm going to speculate on it just because you asked me directly the question and let you know what I'm getting from it. But I got to honestly say, I would think Stone Hobbit, Barbara Lamb, and Sheila Seppi would probably be way better at giving you answers to this because they are researchers on experiences. They're interacting with them all the time. So if you want to go deeper into it, or even have a session with Sheila or something, they could probably actually like really get into what happened there. But it seems to me like what happened was you saw this orb, it basically came to you, and 24 hours later you had some sort of a reaction in your body in which all of a sudden after that you were a stronger person in general, right? That's basically what happened. So to me, it's almost like you had some sort of remembrance or some sort of reintegration with another aspect of yourself that upgraded you and gave you the tools that you needed to be able to confront certain things within life. So that's all I'm going to say about it, because everything else would really be me just kind of coming up with stuff as what I feel. But that's what it kind of seems to me. Yeah. And again, if you want to look deeper into it, the other people I mentioned would be great to help you out. Hopefully that's a good enough answer for you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I've had the downloads and stuff that you talked about too, by the way, after. So yeah, it's like an ongoing
after
process.
The experience that you had.
Oh yeah. I've gotten I didn't know what was happening at first. I started getting all this stuff all at once, like massive, like a data dump.
Well, that's so interesting.
And
well, Barbara raised her hand, so maybe Barbara wants to comment on it. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I do. Anyway, I think that you have been greatly blessed by that orb, being, object, whatever it was. It certainly seems like it was conscious, not only very, very energetic to affect you the way that it did, even through the wall and the window and so forth. And I just incidentally love the fact that you were hiding behind the curtain as if that would be a protection, as if it wouldn't see you. But yes, I've known of many cases where these orbs are really conscious. And in some cases, well, the first case I ever knew about from a friend of mine up in Mendocino, she lived in the woods, and she went outside of her little cabin one day, and there was a pink orb. It didn't affect her like you were affected, but anyway, she thought, oh, this is so pretty. and it seemed to move around a little bit. And she thought, oh, I wonder if it's aware of me, like I'm aware of it. So she asked it to go and fly up to the top of that great big pine tree over there. And it did right away. And then she said, oh, thank you. Would you come down closer to me again? And it did. And she said, would you move over by the fire pit? And it did. Anyway, she developed a relationship with it. My point is that that was just my first awareness back in the early 1990s of these orbs that come, and many people do experience them as being very, very conscious. And you apparently, it seems like got a really mighty download from them. And as Neil said too, we're really strengthened and energized so that you could do the difficult things in your life that you had to do. So that's why I think that it's a privilege, it's a blessing that you were visited by that orb. And there may be more to it than what meets the eye. In other words, since that happened to you, those beings, that consciousness, probably is quite aware of you, even if you're not aware of them. And there may possibly be more happening along that line. And again, I think that if it does, you are very privileged and blessed.
Barbara, it's come back to visit me. I assume it's the same one. It's shown in through the window. I've had weird things happen where I felt like my energy, my soul, I'm not sure, was separate from my body, and I could see things that I shouldn't have been able to see because I was faced the other way. And yeah, so I've had several encounters actually. So, but anyway.
Oh, good. I hope you're keeping track of them, because, that can really add up to a very, very meaningful and inspiring picture.
Thank you. Thank you. I will do that. I'm going to write it all down. Thank you.
Oh, please do. I think they're very precious. Yeah, great.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Barbara.
Beautiful.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Barbara, so much for your comments.
You're welcome.
All right. Do we have anyone else with any final comments that they would like to make? Bridget, do we have any Awaken Ascending family that have questions or comments for Neil?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Well, Neil, I am so grateful to you for doing all that you do to raise the consciousness, raise the frequency here. I mean, it's just amazing to me, all that you provide for us. I'm always referring people to knowing what you do and attending your events, whether they're online or in person. And, it's such an interesting time in the world now because there's so much darkness and negative stuff going on. And a fortunate thing about that is that a lot of it is coming to be known, coming up out of the dark pit. And that's very distressing to learn about all these things, but it's also very good that it's being exposed by light. So anyway, it's so important what you are doing and allowing and sharing, and the people you gather to share with other people, to really do this raising of consciousness that we just absolutely need. We need to flood this world with light and goodness to offset all the negativity. And you are, in my opinion, a very important worker in that way. So I want to thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Feeling is mutual, and I honestly, I name drop you quite often, Barbara. I'm like,
that's okay.
I'm like, it feels good to have you as a friend. I talk about the parties that we're at together. I'm like, yeah, I'm just rubbing noses with Barbara Lamb.
Whiskers or something.
What's that? Say it again.
Having whiskers.
Yeah, no, right. Well, whenever like I'll talk about my first event, I'm always like, yeah, Barbara Lamb was one of the headliners, you know. So like for me, honestly, it's like you are probably one of the most dedicated. I know a lot of dedicated people, but you're like beyond dedicated, more than any other speaker I know. Thousands of people I worked with. Like you sit in the front row. You don't need to engage with people if you don't want to because you're so interested in information. You're there focused on people. You attend events, and I see your name in the room all the time. Like you just register for events. You purchase events. You come to them. You are a true researcher, truly dedicated and passionate about this information. So like I just give you so much props, you know, like I've just the whole time I've known you, and you're such a gentle, pure, loving soul too, you know. So like I'm just grateful that we get to do this together. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, how wonderful. Thank you. I'm very blessed to be doing this with you. And you are just facilitating so much. I mean, it's just, I don't know what we would do without you. You and Sheila. Woo-hoo.
Yep. And now that we've joined forces, you know, like the multiverse is the limit.
It's a great combination. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
thank you, Barbara.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And thank you, everyone, tonight for being here. I like to pull everybody up.
Can I do a poem before we close out too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. What I want to do is try to, at the very end, we pull everybody up. And I like to watch everybody's reactions when you do your poetry. So,
that's cool. Yeah,
all right, Neil, hit it.
Right. Okay, so this is called Cocoon. As I enter my cocoon, emotions flood my eyes as I tear up inside, expressed in love from my heart that has been wounded so much. Is that why we are here? To be aware of the cycles of time? The intensity, the ability to reach a level of consciousness that has presented itself on this beautiful planet countless times. This planet is so beautiful. The story of how we became. Thousands of years where humanity and time coexisted instead of being authoritative and controlled by the ages that will come and will go and will continue to come again. Each eon presents an opportunity for liberation. As I sit in my cocoon, eyes closed, safe now from the faces, the hatred, the pain. It hurts me often. Knowing the cycles is not a form of implementation, integration of the construct of the highest order when we do not follow leaders, but our own sovereign leaders of our own right. A facilitator of energy. Why are we here? Who are we? The philosophy of humanity. What makes us unique, but also what connects us to the plants, animals, and what lies beneath our skin, the vehicle to transport our essence. This time has come before. I cannot judge the transition of one construct into another, one system into another. Who can judge me? The frequencies were designed to provide a depth of experience. Duality came from an infinite singularity until the infinite potential burst into countless possibilities. A fractal, a water drop, a black hole, where I can go and hide. The vibration of love is sometimes buried deep inside. Why am I here? I often wonder, who am I? Why do I exist? Why do I know what I know? I cry often. For the beauty of what it means to be human, for the uniqueness of our position as the galactic position of the Earth shifts to better assist in my mission. My mission? What if I gave it up? Does life continue and is the energy enough? I gave up my mission multiple times as I could not deal with the depression and the self-hatred inside. I grew up having to lie. Fears, insecurities can lead to a demise or a way to rise. I experienced both. I love the earth so much that sometimes the love makes it hard to communicate with words. My hope for humanity has been tested over and over. I lost hope, but then a silly joke, or just by people watching, my faith is restored. We are beautiful. We are so beautiful. I wish we all knew. I have experienced hate for myself that altered my health, but only I can help me. Only I can help me. Only I can help me.
Wow.
Wow,
It's
beautiful.
very profound. Do you have another one for us?
Yeah, I'll do
more?
another one. Yeah,
One
one more.
more?
Feel like you've heard all the ones I remember, you know, but let's do this one here. How about let's do one to the goddess. How about that? Mother Earth.
Awesome.
Mother Earth. Yeah, this is a good way to end it. This is my dedication to the goddess. This one right here. This goes out to one of the manifestations of Source. The north sky reflects light on my porch. The entire planet is my church. Even when she is scorched, Mother Nature will nourish and replenish the soil so that mankind can reap the spoils, abundance, creation, and destruction, the Kali Ma personification, manifesting on this plane in the form of all life, married to Father Sky. Our minds remain fertile, earth in the back of a turtle, the Nephilim reversal, and generations of persecution. Nemesis brings retribution, and Ishtar's contribution are the flowers that bloom, the life we once knew. She is the one who provides unconditional love to you. As we move over her surface, I dedicate these verses. She is always of service. Time to give back, time to bring it back. The wounded feminine is where we've been at, but also the wounded man. The divine aspect ran away from a place a millennia ago. Patriarchy and damaged egos took over this world. Now is the moment to bring back the days of the old. The divine feminine has been on hold, but never truly left. The energy transcends gender as we embark on this quest to remember our nest. Before we were born, she blessed you and me. You and me. But who are we? An illustration of beauty and art, displayed in the cosmos for all of those who pass us to see and admire. She is the fire, the water, the wind, and the birds. All other creatures have heard her voice, her voice, her voice sings lands into existence, providing assistance and gravitational resistance so we can continue to thrive. When we just die before our souls return to the sky, we join her, we become her again, the truest of friends, with us until the end and our rebirth. She is Mother Earth. She is Mother Earth.
Beautiful.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, that was beautiful. Neil, thank you again for an amazing presentation. Thank everyone for participating tonight and asking these awesome questions. I really appreciate you being here week after week. I appreciate all the Zoom family that's out there watching the replays, all of our YouTubers. Remember, when you're visiting the sites, Portal to Ascension and New Realities, hit that like button and subscribe, and get hooked in with Bridget Renee Holiday on Clubhouse with Awake and Ascending. And so for everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us. And until we're back together again next week, which I believe we're having family reunion next week. So that will be fun for everybody to come and share your stories and participate. So until next week, namaste and much love, everybody. Good
Bye,
night.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Love you, Neil.